I think you have to understand each district a little bit to know about the communication with them and where they're at. I'm not going to call Danny Trimble every other week and ask about sharing with Odebolt Arthur, because you know what? We look at that situation, and if there are kids from Odebolt that want to come to the school district, they know, then the board then knows what we have to offer. The board will be informed that we sent them a letter. But that gets sort of like the phone call to Carol Greta about trying to recruit kids from other school districts. You just have to be a little bit careful. It's kind of that mix of being aggressive but being respectful to them of what their district is currently involved in. It's again, in a couple weeks, I will talk with Rockville City, Lytton, and Southern Cal to say, okay, you've had your meetings, and maybe you've got another meeting set. Where are you with that? Because we talk about stuff like that when we meet. So that I know that, yep, we're going ahead with another meeting, or no, that didn't work out, and now we're out looking again. Well, that's different then about what our conversations can be. But with every one of those, I talked about positions we might need, or positions we might have if they needed teachers. Every district around us has some ideas of what we might have too much of or too little of. But superintendents do that when we communicate with each other. So, and what an individual person might tell us might not be what the whole board or what their community really has conveyed or communicated to their boards either. So that would be the other piece of it. And you know, each one of you are a representative of your board, but you can't speak, you know. That's why we sit and we have, this is hard. It's hard conversation. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel sort of badly that the reaction that you had toward this letter, but I felt like this was a way to begin talking with them. It said that we were interested in sharing, and it said what I thought boards in our area and our superintendents might be willing to talk about.
They're just also touchy.
They are. They are.
I mean, everybody's touchy, right?
You know, and I think Dave was the one who said, well, we're known as kind of that board by Shaler Crescent that doesn't want anything to do with them, or something along those lines. I don't think that that's true. I don't think all people there believe that. And you get a different message as you talk from superintendent to superintendent. So
And that's why I asked Barb, we were certain that the superintendent was sharing with the board members, because you know, I was approached by a board member, you know, the 1st December from another district, and he said that they were, you know, sending out feelers. A neighboring district, they're sending out feelers. This spot, this spot, this spot. I said, why don't you send them one to us?
Yeah, I never got anything.
And he
from
said,
anyone.
because we had the feeling that you don't want it, and so that's why I want to make sure that I trust the superintendent is passing it on to the board members.
Well, I have a feeling, for instance, that Odebolt Arthur probably doesn't want to look at this, but we sent them a letter, and I talked with their superintendent. So.
And I guess that's out of our. It's addressed to the superintendent board members, and you know, the thing is that if that gentleman approaches me again, I can say January 12th. I know there's a letter sent. You know, so you need to talk.
I have not had a superintendent call me asking if we want to share. And I have not had a superintendent call and ask about sharing teachers or classes. I have need communication, and you could ask superintendents. I have talked with them. But what I'm saying is that, no, but on that other side, it's I have had communication with people so that they know that we're open to this.
Any other comments on that?
I've got a handout just for us to walk through with sharing a reorganization timeline, and I want to make sure you're clear about financial incentives. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot in here, and you're going to want to take it and take a look at it, and then you can come back to ask questions at the next board meeting. One of the things that I shared with the Citizens Advisory Committee at their last meeting, and we have not had a meeting since then. In fact, we've just gotten our RSVPs back from everybody, so we haven't rescheduled that meeting. But if you go to the bottom of this first page where it says reorganization timeline, where it says election in bold, The election must be held for reorganization, must be held by November 30th of a calendar year prior to the July 1st beginning of reorganization. An example, if we were to begin reorganization July 1st of 2011, then the election must be held in February, April, or September of 2010. Those dates are given because those are the general election dates that are now set out by state law. Because if you remember, we don't have general elections just any time we want them. And so if we're talking about it needing to happen before November 30th, in the year 2010, there would be 4 general election dates, but one of them comes in December. So the options would be February, April, or September. If you go backwards up that timeline, let's just say that our desire was to have the organization begin July 1st of 2011. Then it talks about appeals and decisions of hearings and public hearings and how objections are filed and how petitions take place and the timelines that go with those. And if you remember, the director of the AEA took us through that, and it was over a whole bunch of slides, and I just took those, and there's nothing special about July 1st of 2011, only that it's an example in a time frame about when that might happen. So that's what a timeline might look like. If you turn to the back of that page, the top of the page says whole grade sharing, supplementary weighting, and reorganization incentives timeline. And it cites the Iowa Code. If you look in the column under timeline that says begin FY08, and you walk down that column, I put a line across where we're at. On October 1st of 2008, we included whole grade sharing on our resident students for supplementary weighting on our certified enrollment. So that line is there so that you see in that timeline where we're at. What will continue to happen for the schools involved in East Sac County, Sac and Lakeview Auburn, August 1st, 2009, a report indicating continued progress toward reorganization. And if you remember, I told you that in September that I needed to file that report, and then we get word back about whether SBRC accepts that. If they accept it, that we've made adequate progress in cutting costs, combining, sharing, we're trying to be more efficient in every way possible, then they say to us, okay, now you can count supplementary weighting on the following year. And you can walk through the rest of that timeline. So the last line says reorganize or dissolve July 1st, 2010. Well, it doesn't really mean that. What it means is that you can continue to whole grade share, but supplementary weighting yet. Because we hadn't made progress. We wouldn't have made progress toward reorganization. Okay? 3 years of whole grade sharing, supplementary weighting, 3 years of reorganization. The 3 years of reorganization, supplementary weighting happened beginning the year that the reorganization starts. So if you went to the front page and we started on July 1st of 2011, then that year, beginning in July 1, supplementary weighting for reorganization would take place. But if there's any years in between, let's say it takes us 4 years of whole grade sharing before we got to reorganization, there would be 1 year in there when there would be we'd receive no incentive. And that happens. That happens to schools. I mean, that's how it works.
And knowing the state election laws, I'll bet this has to be a special election. It can't be with the school board election, right?
It could be with the school board election. I believe I understood it that it could be with school board election because there are so few election dates possible. Right. That would be page 2. If you turn to page 3, it's another sheet that says reorganization and sharing incentives in Iowa Code Chapter 257, and it talks about the administrative rules. It talks about regional academies, reorganization taxpayer incentives, whole grade sharing agreement incentives, and operational function sharing agreement incentives. So it's listing what the incentive is, what the timeline is, and then what the requirements are to meet that. So I emailed the DE today and asked them about career academies and regional academies. We might be whole grade sharing the 2 districts, but what constitutes a career academy or what constitutes a regional academy? What if